Hey guys, Jerry here with Overwatch Precision, makers of the Glockkraft trigger. I'm going to do a simple install video for our Glock 43 today. Unfortunately, we're still out of Glock 43 trigger bars and we don't know when Glock is going to get them to us. So the easiest way to put our trigger into your 43 is to do a self-install. So I'm going to show you how to do that today. Take your gun, make sure it's clear and empty. Do a field disassembly on the gun. Take your Glock tool or any punch. You have two pins on the Glock 43. You have your trigger pin and the trigger housing pin. You want to remove these left to right, starting with the trigger housing pin. Just push that straight out. For your trigger pin, there's a trick to this. You want to take your tool and push on the pin. At the same time, you're going to push down on your slide stop lever. You want to push it up and down, basically in a wiggling motion, while you at the same time push on the pin. It will come right out. If you don't push up and down on that pin, you will not get the pin out. Or rather, if you don't push up and down on the slide stop, you will not get that out. Take your tool. You want to lift up on the locking block. Just kind of pry it straight up, and that comes right out. From here, you can grab your ejector and just pull the whole unit straight up. Take your slide stop out. We don't need the frame right now. We can put that off to the side. Your trigger bar is connected to your trigger housing unit. All you're going to do is simply pull forward a little bit and twist it out, and it comes right out. From here, what we need to do is we need to remove this trigger shoe from the trigger bar. There are two pins in the trigger shoe. We only want to take out the top pin. That's the only one that matters for us right now. So take anything that you can use to hold the trigger stationary. I'm going to use household items to show that you can do this with anything really. Take anything that has a small enough point on it that you can fit on there. A regular punch will work as well. Put that punch right on that pin and tap it out. You're going to destroy your shoe. You don't need it anyways, you can throw it away. This is the only part that we want, the trigger bar. Take our trigger shoe. You're going to start the pin first. It's the easiest way to do this. We include 3 pins just in case you happen to break one or lose one. This part really helps if you have a roll pin holder. You want to start your roll pin. If it happens to go too far through, simply drive it back until you have enough clearance, and you'll see inside the trigger bar slot if the pin is sticking in too far. If you happen to drive it all the way through, that's no problem. Just take your pin and start over. So the easiest way to do this is to have the pin sticking through the trigger bar slot just a little bit. Take your trigger bar, put your trigger bar in. If it happens to be in too far, take your trigger bar and your trigger bar shoe only go together one way. I guess you could put it in upside down, but don't do that. You'll know immediately if it's going to work or not. Insert your trigger bar. You find the spot where it meets up with a pin and you'll kind of hear it click. Once it does that, at this point, don't drive your pin all the way through. Check to make sure the trigger bar itself is free and clear and it rotates, but at the same time it doesn't come out. And that's what you're looking for right there. Now that we know it's centered, we can drive that pin all the way home. The pin should be flush on both sides, and you can see it is. Double check that your trigger bar rotates freely, and this one does. Take your trigger bar, the front of your trigger bar here needs to go into this little recess right there. Bring your trigger bar into that recess at an angle off to the side. Pull forward slightly so that it rests just like that. Take your frame, insert your trigger housing into the trigger housing cavity. This part of the trigger housing goes behind this recessed wall there. Take your slide stop, insert your slide stop. Take your locking block. Your locking block can only go in one way. You can try to put it in backwards, but it won't go in. This is backwards, you'll know right away. It only goes in one way. So get it started and just push straight down. Take your trigger pin, it's the bigger of the two pins. Start your trigger pin from the right side going left. You'll have to wiggle the trigger a little bit to get it started. As you come through with the trigger pin, push down on your slide stop lever till it goes all the way through. You'll hear it lock in place. It's already locked in place. Take your trigger housing pin, start your trigger housing pin. Push that all the way through. Make sure it's flush on both sides. Take your slide. Go ahead and reassemble the pistol. Do a function check. Again, make sure there's nothing in it. Going to pull the trigger, hold the trigger, cycle the slide, release the trigger to make sure it resets. And you can hear that this one did. And that is how to install our trigger shoe onto your own Glock 43 trigger bar.